Hey, welcome to our explainer. Today we are diving into something I think we all feel. That overwhelming sense of having way too many choices. I mean, from what to watch tonight to what career to build for a lifetime, the options are just endless. But here's the big question. Does all this choice actually make us any happier? Let's get into it.
So let's just put the question right out there. Is more choice always a good thing? I mean, on the surface, the answer seems obvious, right? Of course it is. Freedom, opportunity, that's all built on having choices. But, as we're about to see, what we feel and what the science tells us, well, it's a much more complicated story.
So this whole feeling of being stuck, it really boils down to two big ideas that can seem really similar, but they actually come from different places. Choice overload and multipotentiality. Figuring out which one you're dealing with is the first step to getting unstuck.
Okay, so let's break this down because the difference is super important. Choice overload, that's an external problem. It's the world throwing too much at you. Think about standing in the grocery store staring at like 175 different salad dressings. That's the environment creating the pressure. Multipotentiality, though, that's internal. That's when you have so many genuine interests, so many things you're good at, that picking just one feels like you're letting down all the other possible versions of yourself.
So, what's the real harm here? You know, a little stress, what's the big deal? Well, it turns out this is way more than just a minor annoyance. This overload of options has real, measurable costs. It can lead to complete decision paralysis, and even when we do make a choice, a deep sense of dissatisfaction. To really see this in action, let's look at one of the most famous studies ever done on this topic. It's a brilliant little experiment from researchers Iyengar and Lepper, and it involves something we can all understand: jam.
And the results? Honestly, they are kind of shocking. When shoppers saw a table with 24 different jams, only 3% of them actually bought one. But, and here's the kicker, when the table only had 6 jams, 30% of people bought a jar. That is a tenfold increase. Fewer choices led to way more action, and other parts of the study found those customers were happier with the jam they bought.
Now you might be thinking, hold on, but isn't it worth it to really search for the absolute best option? Well, let's look at a study of college grads. The maximizers. These are the people who have to find the single best possible choice. They actually earned 20% more in their starting salaries. Sounds pretty good, right? But that is not the whole story. Because here's what that extra 20% salary actually cost them. It came with way more stress, a ton more frustration, and much more anxiety during the job hunt. And even after they got that higher paying job, they were more likely to regret it, constantly second-guessing themselves, wondering if an even better job was still out there. And for those multi-potentialites we talked about, the people with tons of talents, this struggle is so personal, and it hurts. This quote from a student, Azadeh, just hits so hard. The pressure to choose one thing doesn't feel like an amazing opportunity. It feels like a failure. It can lead to this really deep sense of guilt, like you're wasting your own potential just because you can't commit.
And look, this isn't just about jam or your first job out of college. This effect is so powerful, it impacts our biggest life decisions, like, say, saving for retirement. Let's look at this huge study of almost 800,000 employees and their retirement plans.
The findings were just stunning. As the number of investment funds available went up, from just a couple to almost 60, you'd think more people would sign up, right? More choices, something for everyone. Nope, the exact opposite happened. When faced with that many options, participation rates actually dropped off a cliff. The overload led to paralysis, and people just avoided making a critical decision for their future.
Okay, so we've seen what happens. The big question is why? Why does our brain, this incredible machine, basically short-circuit when we give it too much to think about? Well, the answer is all about how we're wired. And the main reason comes down to this Nobel Prize-winning idea called bounded rationality. And it's actually pretty simple. We are not supercomputers. Our brains have a very real, very finite limit on how much information they can process at one time. And this isn't a personal flaw, it's just a fundamental fact of being human. And we can even put a number on that limit. Famous research from George Miller found that our working memory, that's the part of your brain juggling information right now, can really only handle about 7 things at once, give or take 2. So when you're trying to compare 30 jams or 60 investment funds, your brain is just not built for that. It's like trying to run the latest video game on a computer from 1995. It's just gonna crash. So knowing our brains have these limits, it really highlights 2 very different ways people approach decisions. Maximizers wear themselves out trying to analyze every single option to find the one perfect, best choice, which is pretty much impossible. But then you have the satisficers. Their strategy is way more effective.
They figure out their criteria, they look for something that's good enough to meet them, and once they find it, they choose it and they move on.
All right, so we get the problem. It's real. It's exhausting. Now, what in the world do we actually do about it? The key isn't finding some magic answer. It's about building a better, saner process for making choices. We're going to break it down into two parts: fixing your mindset and then taking practical action.
First up, it's all about the internal work. You have to reshape your mindset. Step 1, and this is the big one, embrace good enough. It's not settling, it's strategic. Step 2 is accepting that you'll never have all the information, and that's okay. And step 3, you have to accept imperfection. Real peace doesn't come from finding some fantasy perfect option. It comes from accepting the real options you have and choosing from there.
And once you've got that mindset right, you can start taking some very real practical actions. First, you have to be the one to simplify your options. Group them. Get rid of the ones that don't really matter. Second, stop just thinking and start doing. Try something out on a small scale. That's what experiential prototyping means. Take an online class, volunteer for a day, get real data. And third, please, don't do this alone. Talk to people you trust, mentors, friends, advisors, and get some outside perspective.
This idea right here is a total game changer. Prototyping takes all the pressure off. You are not trying to decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life. All you're doing is running a little experiment to figure out your very next step. That transforms a huge, scary decision into a small, manageable, and even exciting one.
So let's pull all this together. The way out of the paradox of choice isn't about magically finding the right answer in a sea of options. It's about building a better process for yourself. It really requires us to completely redefine what it even means to make a choice. And this, right here, this is the heart of it all. True freedom, true choice, isn't about having a million doors to choose from. It's about having the strength and peace of mind to walk through one door and the courage to abandon all the others. Every choice is also an act of letting go. And that's not a weakness, that's a strength. So I'll leave you with this final thought. In your own life, right now, with whatever you're facing, what options are just creating noise and paralysis? Today, what are you ready to bravely abandon so that you can finally move forward? Thanks for joining us.